Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Elvis Santana, and today I am pleased to have as our guest Dax Crocker. So Dax is very active with the immigrant community. He helps directly, and we're here to find out more about what he does, who he is. Thank you, Dax, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So please tell us a little bit about the organization with which you do all of your outreach and the mission there, and what your day-to-day activities look like as interfacing with the immigrant community.
Sure, thank you. I work for Episcopal City Mission. It is a nonprofit that is part of the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts. The offices are in Boston. My work is here in Bristol County. So I covered anything from New Bedford to Fall River to Taunton. And the aspect of my work is assisting the immigrant communities, in plural, in finding legal resources, finding assistance, finding help as they begin their life in this new country.
And this is through the Episcopal Church.
The Episcopal Church is the employer and the organization that provides the funding. The work on the ground is a lot of Quakers from various Quaker churches. They call them Quaker meetings in the area. The Unitarian Universalist churches in the area. Congregational church in Mattapoisett is a big help to us. The Jewish congregation in New Bedford, Tirefet, Israel is also part of the group, and a few nonprofit immigration agencies like Catholic Social Services, Immigrant Legal Services here in Fall River, Business Innovation Center, and the Brazilian Association of the South Coast is also part of the work that we have. In New Bedford, we work with the Center for Economic Development, the CEDC, on Acushnet Avenue. That's a major partner in our work.
So while this is spearheaded by, or not to say spearheaded by the Episcopal Church, it is still a cross-denominational, multi-support partnership. There's a lot of different partners here collaborating with the Episcopal Church's organization for community outreach to immigrants.
That is correct. And also on the immigrant side, it's multicultural. We have a big Brazilian network that we work with in Fall River, and a big Guatemalan immigrant network in New Bedford that we work with. So on both sides, the immigrant populations who just came and are seeking assistance, and those who have the resources. Communities are multicultural, multi-faith. Some are faith, some are grassroots organizations that are not political or religious.
Well, that really is a sense of community, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a community.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Can you tell me a little bit of the history of this organization? Immigration is not a new thing to this country.
No, it's not. And Episcopal City Mission was founded 150 or so years ago.
Wow.
For the purpose of assisting Irish immigrants who were coming at that time. That was one of the waves of immigrants that has come to the U.S. And as you know, Boston has a big Irish population who are now not considered immigrants.
Right.
But when they were first coming, many of them just got off the boat in the harbor in Boston and just didn't have a place to go. Many of them just came without families, without any connections to the U.S. So Episcopal City Mission was assisting Irish immigrants finding housing, finding English classes, finding jobs. And that is how we got our first start with, 2-3 volunteers from the Episcopal Church. Throughout the history of the various waves of migrations, Episcopal City Mission has worked in that area, and now we continue the same work with a different wave of immigrants in the 21st century.
That's very important because I know a lot of the people that are immigrants in this country, undocumented or documented, feel a little bit of, they don't feel as accepted, perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in our political sphere as things that relate to immigration and attitudes towards that. So it's really nice to see that you have an organization that has helped the same way, regardless of the wave, regardless of the time and where people came from. I think that's a beautiful thing for people to feel included and supported the same way as any other immigrant has in the past, right? I think our Statue of Liberty says, give us your poor, your wretched, your refugee, something along those lines. It's nice to see that we have organizations that still have those values.
Right. Unfortunately, the anti-immigrant sentiment in this country has also been the same throughout the different waves.
Which is good to know. Which is good for a lot of people to understand.
It's nothing new.
Yes.
Right? The people who were established when the Irish immigrants were coming, when Episcopal City Mission was founded, also gave them a lot of
trouble,
because people distrust in general
what they don't
know. They don't understand something new. Obviously, the reason why the wretched, the poor, the refugee, the tired, as the poem says, are coming because they're not better in their country of origin. It's not on the table, they don't have a job, or health care is not provided, etc. And so masses of people throughout the history of the U.S. have come, and all those waves have faced resistance. And they become an established community, and they are no longer considered immigrants. And now we have these new waves here in Fall River. The latest wave is Brazilians who come into Fall River because there's family here, there's work. In New Bedford, we are working with the Guatemalan community, even though there's also people from El Salvador, from Honduras, other Central American communities. But the biggest one is the Guatemalan community. And, as the Brazilians and as the Guatemalans, they're all coming because the U.S. is a country that offers a job, food and opportunity. And that's why we all came.
Yeah, I think everyone at the end of the day, or most people, want to be contributing members of society. So it's really nice to see that that organization exists to help them get there. So what is the main activity that you do through this organization in your community outreach that, what is it that you do the most?
So what we do the most is find needs that the immigrant communities have that the traditional immigration agencies are not able to provide. So, for example, there are some immigration legal services agencies already established, like Catholic Social Services Immigration Legal Services here in Fall River. They already provide legal representation. So we don't want to provide that because we don't want to double the same type of work, right? Or duplicate the same type of work. In New Bedford, we work with the Community Economic Development Center, the CEDC. They provide a lot of ESL classes. They help people enroll their kids in school because when you come, you don't know how to navigate that system. They do taxes for the immigrant community. So we don't want to do that work. The work that we do is what they cannot provide. And so when we met with all these agencies and with the faith community that wanted to bring resources to this work, what we found out is that the biggest need that the immigrant communities in the South Coast have is transportation to immigration court or to go to their immigration parole officer for a check-in, which is usually once a month. Both of them are north of us. Immigration court is in Boston, and the parole offices are in Burlington, which is another 20 minutes north of Boston.
And this is where you may not have transportation to get you there.
Well, there is no public transportation from here to Burlington at all, right? Like there's no way you can get there on a 1 hour, 2 hour bus ride. The other thing is that Massachusetts, to this day, does not allow immigrants who are in the process of getting their documents a driver's license, so they can't drive themselves either. Yet they have to go to court.
So they're stuck, but they have to go to court.
They have to go to court. They have to go to the parole officer. The immigration parole officer works just like the criminal justice parole officer. If you don't show up, they'll lock you up.
Oof.
Yeah. And so what we did is that once we learned the need, we started talking to the faith community, Episcopalians, Quakers, Unitarian Universalists, Congregationalists, the Jewish congregations, etc. And we said, this is the need. We need volunteer drivers, ideally retired, right? Because it's a long trip, who take immigrants to their court appointment, to their citizenship appointment, to their parole officer for immigration purposes. And little did we know that these churches or houses of worship that we work with had already started recruiting volunteers who wanted to connect with the immigrant communities. They just didn't know what to do. And so we have 49 drivers right now who on a daily basis take immigrants to their immigration appointments wherever they need to go at no cost to the rider. Mm-hmm. They pay the gas and they put in the time and they take them and bring them back, and it's been a wonderful job.
I'm personally I am very impressed that this is a cross-denominational interfaith initiative that can be also used to show how much more we have in common than what separates us.
Yes.
And to look after the less fortunate or those in need is something that I think every community should have as part of its values. That's a beautiful thing. Now, for all of these activities that this organization does, what is your favorite? What do you find most impactful that you get involved in?
Sure. For me, the most impactful, the most joy that I get out of this is when a U.S. citizen volunteer becomes friend with an immigrant rider as they go to Burlington or to Boston or wherever they went. And by the time they come back, they already exchange phone numbers. They find out that the children of this immigrant and the grandchildren of this retired driver go to the same school in New Bedford or Fall River. And then finding out weeks later that we didn't even have to connect them anymore. The next ride or the next appointment that they had, they connected via text messages. Broken English on one side, broken Spanish on the other side, or broken Portuguese for those who are Brazilian. And they went to a hospital appointment or to a passport appointment in Providence to the Guatemalan consulate.
So at the end of the day, you are helping the immigrant community in two ways. One, giving them specifically a service that they need. And secondly, you're integrating them into their community through the volunteer work of other people that join the mission, that join the... Yep. That's remarkable.
True. And then on the other side, we're also helping the community, the established community of U.S. citizens, learn how their parents and their grandparents came, right? Because it's the same story. And I have heard the stories of some of our drivers saying, "This is how my grandmother came," right? I had a driver who told me that he had an uncle who got off the boat from Italy in Ellis Island with no papers back in the day. And he was 14 years old when that uncle came. So he was an undocumented, underage immigrant, just like the DACA students that we now have. And this uncle used to tell the stories, and he wouldn't believe them until he met someone who he drove to a court appointment in Boston and said, "Oh boy, this is my uncle." Same story, different people, 75 years later.
Very impressive.
Yeah,
very impressive.
It's beautiful.
The community at large, I think, needs a lot more exposure to people that we would otherwise consider different. Because at the end of the day, we are more similar, that we have more that unites us than what separates us. That's a very, very beautiful example of what you guys do. Thank you for joining us in this segment. Mr. Dax Crocker, if you could please let the audience know how they could reach you and your organization if anyone wants to volunteer and sign up for these initiatives.
Sure. If you have the time, would like to assist us, we need not only drivers, but people who do all other kinds of work. You can contact me at my email. Work email is Dax, D as in David, A as in Apple, X as in Xerox, Dax at episcopalcitymission.org. If you know of an immigrant or you are an immigrant yourself and you need some of our services, please contact me at the same email address, and we would be more than happy to connect you with people who will guide you in working with us. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dax. Thank you. For our audience out there, thank you for tuning in. Please, we would love to have you in our next segment where we will have more interesting people to interview to give you more insight into what they do, what things are out there, what information is out there, what resources is out there that can serve the community and unite us all as Americans and future Americans. Thank you very much. Follow us on the Facebook channel, on our YouTube channel. Thank you.
That's pretty good, huh?